All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We're a little bit behind, and we want to give plenty of time to the judge. I know Bruce is going to be gone tonight. He is out of town with his wife, and they're getting some stuff done in Washington. So we send our prayers to them as well. Judge, welcome.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give you kind of a quarterly update. We've had a lot of good things that have gone on here in the last quarter. So we did the Municipal Court Conference May 11th through the 13th over at the Hilton. Had about 50 people, judges and clerks from around the state. It was really good. Had a lot of really great speakers. We had Justice Keith Couch from the Wyoming Supreme Court, Fred Berg from the Self-Help Center, YDOT came, and then we had a big presentation from the Governor's Council for Impaired Driving. Rich Adrian spoke, and then we had a number of the lab professionals that came and spoke. We did have a wet lab, which was super interesting. It was a lot of fun to watch, and got some good participation in that, and so that was really entertaining, and it kind of gave everybody a really good idea of, I don't think a lot of people really understand, like, they get them, so they have them drink up to a 0.12 blood alcohol level, and then they ask them to do field sobrieties in front of the entire group. And it's very interesting to see some of the stereotypical things that you hear about people that are, intoxicated, and then how well other people perform in those field sobriety tests, and then how very little level of intoxication people think that they are, because there's kind of a range, and so they ask everybody, how intoxicated do you believe you are? And then they've PBT'd them so they know the answers to that. And so that was really fun and really good to watch, and everybody really enjoyed that. So I also presented at that conference for the clerks. We had a new rule that came out from the Wyoming Supreme Court under Rule 3 and 3.1, and it kind of threw everything off a little bit. So I did a presentation to kind of clear that up for clerks on how that rule is to be implemented basically on the court side. And so that was really good. Got a lot of really great questions, got a really good feedback. So I enjoyed doing that. On June 8th, we did our quarterly Governor's Council for Impaired Driving meeting, which I did virtually, did court in the morning and then attended that. And Rich Adrian's had me speak as to the training that they did, because I'm also on that council. So I did speaking to the judicial training side for the council, and kind of gave them a report of the feedback and how things went. And so that was really good. They were really happy that we got to do that. I've done a couple new classes through the Judicial College, now in week 4 of a couple classes taken to evidence and ethics, reaching higher ground. I've also enrolled in a couple of National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges trainings that I'm going to do a little later on August, September, while I'm out on maternity leave. But those will be kind of address the juvenile probation side of things, not so much the family court side, but the juvenile probation, how to handle different aspects of the juvenile probation sort of issues. As you all know, Letitia started. We've done some really great collaboration, have some really great ideas to kind of move forward in the fall to start implementing some of those things. We've got our court security construction coming up. She's going to be hiring a new part-time bailiff, which we're really excited about. So we've got a lot of good things going in the security avenue. Like I said, with Letitia, we're going to do some different projects starting this fall. And one thing that we kind of like to look at from the court's perspective, I did a training through the Judicial College on how to kind of bring courts. It's kind of been a taboo thing, especially in the state of Wyoming, for courts to kind of do much community outreach. So we've kind of gotten some guidelines on some things that we can implement, some education maybe we can do via our website, press releases, those sorts of things. So we're going to try to look at implementing some of those come the fall, and we're excited to do that for education for the public, and I think that's important. And then there was, we had previously had court liaisons, and I'm not sure that we still do, or where we're at on that as far as council goes, but that's something that we would definitely be interested in having again this fall. We'd like to set up maybe monthly meetings with both judges and Letitia, and just kind of go over, just kind of see where things are, if there's any questions out there, and make that kind of maybe part of our education component, that maybe then for your constituents you'll be able to maybe answer questions that are ongoing that then you can have immediate answers to, and kind of help in that area. So that's all I've got today.
Awesome. So I'm gonna, to that point of court liaisons,
Yes.
maybe think about council members that are gonna stay. If we're looking at fall, it sounds like there's a few council members that will be staying. They have another 2 years before their next flip. Maybe think about that. If not, judge would be someone, and then someone, you know,
Yeah.
depends upon what's happening, because there are a couple of council members leaving
Right.
and running, and we just never know what could happen to us
Right.
that are running. So,
Yeah.
but we certainly want to make sure that we get you somebody consistent as well. So
Yeah.
I'll talk to the council members to see if somebody's interested.
Yeah, we didn't know really who was even kind of on that anymore, and so I didn't know if there was gonna be somebody leaving, or if we had some that were staying maybe on that. I didn't know, so.
I know we had Mike Huber for a while.
It was
And
Mike, me and
Councilman
Mike.
Johnson.
You and Mike, yeah, we're
Yep.
doing that, so we can look at something and maybe getting something set up this summer.
Yeah,
I can talk to a
that
couple
sounds great.
council members.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Sounds great.
Thank you. So now I'll transition. Questions for Judge Martinez? Comments, anything? Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, a comment and a question, if I could.
Yes.
Judge, I really appreciate the opportunity that we've had to have our court matters meeting. And for your purposes, that's the opportunity the judge and I have to sit down with the city attorney and the chief. And Letitia, of course, would be welcome to that now that she's on board with us. That's been a really good venue, or forum, I should say, and I appreciate that. The question I have that actually came up, I think, in one of our court matters meetings, was that of, similar to what one of our council people brought up a couple weeks ago, about the idea of transitioning the jail budget to court from PD. The representation that I made, and I'm asking this because you can certainly correct me if I misrepresented, was that you had an objection to that idea, given the division of powers, if you will, and authorities, that would compromise. Do you mind commenting on that a little bit?
No, and I actually I wondered if that wouldn't come up, so I actually got some, so back, over a year ago, May of 25th of 2021, this was kind of brought up, and I really didn't know the answer, and so it felt wrong, and so what I did is I reached out to the AG's office, and I was like, here's my assessment of it, and I kind of detailed it for her. I was like, there's a separation of powers issue here. It may create the appearance of impropriety, as the judge may be viewed as being more worried about the financial considerations than fair sentencing options. And so the reply back that I got from the AG's office was that assessment was correct, that it would not be appropriate to transfer that line item, because part of the sentencing considerations should not be the financial impact either, in any way really, to the city. The judicial system needs to be unbiased, and fair sentencing should be brought for each individual defendant with the facts and circumstances presented at that time. So. Yes, absolutely.
Other questions for Judge? Thank you so much for
Absolutely,
coming. Thank you for giving
Yep,
us.
thank you for the opportunity, and
I'm
always
good.
look forward to coming.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, sounds like things are going really well. So
Yeah,
we
they're going really
appreciate
well. Yep.
Everything. Thanks, Letitia.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, agenda review. Carter?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. A couple items I wanted to bring to your attention, one of which would be with respect to an email I sent out to you a little earlier today pertaining to a survey that we were hoping we could get your help with. You know that next week we are bringing recommendations as it relates to 1 cent to your attention next week. And one of the layers of analysis that we would really appreciate is if you were to take the survey you see on the screen here as a part of the exercise of preparation that we would like to take the final step of leading up to next week's meeting. It's actually a pretty straightforward instrument that we would like to use to gather your input officially, that we would of course add as a layer of analysis on top of what it is that the community has already told us. And so I asked Pete if he would give us a quick rundown of how this works, if that would be okay, Mr. Mayor. What we're hoping is that we can get these filled out and turned back to us before 10:00 tomorrow morning. Glazed looks. No, that's okay. It's really straightforward, not that complex, and it would really help us because we lose Pete next week to vacation, and we have a staff meeting tomorrow where we hope to wrap these recommendations up. So if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, to defer to Pete to help help orient us with this, that'd be great.
Perfect. Pete.
Mayor, thank you so much. Yes, this is, I believe, a very simple instrument. It is a way to get you guys to explain to us how you want to divide up what we believe to be our budget for the next one set, assuming it gets passed by the voters, of course. We believe that it's going to collect about $64.5 million. That's a very large number. We want to divide it as appropriately as we can among these different priorities. Now, we do know that our priorities exceed this number, so we're going to have to, nobody's going to get everything that they want. But the survey document itself is pretty straightforward. You just write in a dollar figure here for each one of these categories. And if you scroll down to the very bottom, as you fill it out, it eventually deducts from this number until you get down to 0, and then it turns green, and then you're good to go. I'm not going to name names, but I've already gotten at least one survey back. Thank you so much for the council members who are already obviously working on this. Thank you.
Overachiever.
And
Pete, I want to know who it is. Because they're making us look bad right now.
I thought they were making you look good.
It was me.
I
have a very busy morning tomorrow morning.
So the council member, and she will remain nameless, I set an example for you all. And yeah, these are the exact same questions that we asked of the public in the public survey. And we did include the citizen results down the bottom in case you wanted to refer to that as you're dividing your allocations. But we do appreciate it if you can take some time and fill this out, because this will help us to come back with a recommendation that is in line with what you guys want to see when we present next week.
Any questions for Pete or anything on the survey?
This is for the 4 years, correct? So if we want to spend $3 million a year, we need to put $12 million in.
Is that correct, Pete?
That's correct.
Okay. And how much are we allocating now to water? Is it 2.5?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. 0.5 water. And we are allocating 500 to sewer.
And Mr. Mayor, the other subsidy would be swimming, which is $325 per year, as well as transit. I can't remember how much we actually paid in transit. Do you remember?
It's 1.6 million, so 400,000 a year.
400,000 a year. Okay, thank you. That's currently what council has authorized.
That's for what?
Transit.
The last one is transit. Yeah. Yep.
Great. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for allowing for bothering me with this. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Awesome. Anything else, Trevor?
The only other thing that I had was actually with respect to a suggestion for a possible amendment tonight. Or
I was going to bring it up if you.
Oh, perfect. Do you mind if I? Thank you.
You bet. Go
I
ahead.
appreciate that.
Okay. I'd gotten some comments and things from the citizenry about the parking on parkways. And I know you got a kudo from Keith Rowland for saying we spent too much time on it. So take that for what it's worth. But basically, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of people that don't want parking on parkways at all. And right now, we're talking about allowing people to park on all parkways, which I don't think any of us, from a community viability, beauty, etc. standpoint, really want people parking on Durban on the parkways or on Walcott or some of your bigger streets. So the proposal that I'm proposing is that parking on parkways would not be allowed if you have 12-foot travel lanes and 8-foot parking lanes that can be maintained, which says that basically if you've got nice wide streets, you don't need to be parking on the parkways. So that's, to me, is kind of a compromise, and I had got some comments about it, about people wanting to maintain some of the quality of some of our neighborhoods and things. So,
We can debate that on the floor.
do it.
We can debate that on the
Oh,
floor. when you bring the
absolutely, but
amendment.
just so
Yep.
nobody's caught by surprise, you can be mulling it over for the next.
No, appreciate it.
Whatever.
Yep. Lisa?
What would that be for enforcement purposes?
Basically, you're supposed to go get a permit, I think is what we've said, at $25 a year. So you go to get a permit, and no, you can't do it. And it's easy for the streets department and everybody else to know where our wide and narrow streets are.
Anything else?
Can I ask a clarifying question about the permit?
You got it.
Okay, so last time we were talking about it, we were talking about how the only way you could guarantee that space is yours and essentially claim it and kick people off of it is if you have the permit. Does that mean if somebody does not get the permit and somebody's parked there, that they're technically, like, it's okay? It's okay for somebody to park there, it's just, it can be anybody. You don't get to claim that space legally and like in terms of our code and enforcement.
Carter?
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, that certainly is one of the arguments, if you will, for the permitting process.
Mm-hmm.
It is very similar in nature to the, I think we call it critical parking permit that we do here in the community, where typically by the high schools, for example, a permit can be taken so that the space in front of their home won't be occupied throughout the day and into the night by students and so forth in the area. So that's the theory. And of course, that would be supported by virtue of the resolution that council would consider in a couple weeks if this gets to third reading.
Okay. So if a car, is it okay to
Oh,
close
yeah.
out?
Mhm.
So if a car is parked there but not permitted, there won't be any repercussions for that, other than potentially the homeowner just being unsatisfied with somebody else's vehicle being there.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, yes, the idea
Okay.
is that if that space is a permitted space, it would technically be reserved for the adjacent homeowner.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would be kind of an open property sort of consideration, just like the space in front of someone's home
Okay.
on the street.
Okay. Yeah. Just
Amber.
wanted to clarify.
But if I'm understanding correctly, it would be illegal to park in that space if you're not permitted. Once we pass this, it's illegal to park in all parkways
So that's,
unless you're permitted.
that was my question.
So if
Is that
somebody,
correct?
so if somebody parked on there, didn't have a permit, it's still
And
illegal.
it's illegal.
Because you have to have a permit to park on the parkway, correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, I actually understood it that if improvements were to be made in the area, that's essentially what you're permitting, to have that space reserved for you by virtue of the improvements that you provided. So, I thought the direction was that we would be permitting these spaces, but otherwise, unless they're
Yeah,
improved,
right, but you can only park there if you're permitted. You can improve the space, or some other homeowner could have already improved the space, but unless you go get a permit, you can't park there.
Chief?
actually, I think I agree with that. Yeah.
Mayor, council, I appreciate the discussion. It is the police department's perception that it's council's intent to allow parking on the parkway only for permanent people. So if there was no permit for that space and Joe Blow citizen, homeowner, not homeowner, anybody parked on that unpermitted, I believe it would be, according to my perceptions of council's intent, that would be an enforceable parking infraction.
I think that was the intent. That's my understanding.
That's how I understood it. I just want to make sure that I hadn't lost track of the, the
That's your
train
interpretation.
at some point.
John gave us the thumbs up that that's his interpretation of
Okay.
the ordinance, so.
Okay.
Well-oiled machine.
That's what I was
But I think it's
confused
running
about.
out.
Yeah.
Anything else? Carter, do you have any other stuff?
I do not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council have anything? I know Steve just brought up his amendment. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. Restroom breaks, all that. Mileage Mike was certainly a very kind, passionate soul, and he was at council and fought for multiple things when it came to Wyoming debate and motorcycle safety, and so I had the pleasure of working with him for the last 7 years, and so I passed away over the weekend, and we just want to send our regards to the whole motorcycle community here in Casper and around the state who knew Mileage, and prayers and thoughts go out to his family as they mourn his passing. Thank you. Before we begin this evening, I would like to remind everyone to please silence their cell phones. Just a reminder, council meetings are also televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. I now call the June 21st, 2022 regular council meeting to order. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, excuse the absence of Councilmember Nell.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cathy, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You lefty? Turn it over, you're supposed to turn that. That's true.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the June 7th, 2022 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on June 16th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Egebretson, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With council members Johnson and Sutherland abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes. Okay. With just council member Sutherland abstaining and all others voting aye, motion passes.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the June 21st, 2022 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Egebretson, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Any abstentions? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. Now is the time that we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with the council to come forward. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we do ask the following. Please state your name and address. Direct all questions and comments to the mayor and only to the mayor. No personal attacks on staff or the council will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be referred to the city manager. Questions posed by speakers may or may not be responded to by council members. Presentations are only allowed for 5 minutes, and the duplication of speakers are not allowed, nor any time extensions will be permitted. Please note that all the public hearings and ordinances have their own comment period, so please hold your comments until those items when we reach those. Good evening.
Casper, Wyoming. Chief, good to see you again. Pleasure to speak. I've been trying to save our water problem. It's under threat with radiation.
Could you state your name really quick and address?
Craig Sheets,
Great. Thanks, Craig.
son of Gil Sheets. His birthday was yesterday. So anyways, it's a pleasure of a meeting for me.
Thanks, Craig.
You got it. Hey, we need to speak about a little bit of integration that's illegal, and it's a fuel child to a water child. We're not all the same. And seems there's records of kids committing suicide and ODing on drugs. I don't know what high school you guys went to, but the one I went to, I could get anything I wanted, as much as I wanted. Brea, Linda, Southern California, Orange County. So those are on records. I might be bringing those to the public. But right now, let's talk about some fuel problems. We might all be under threat. I dropped the codes off with the chief over there to the public in question, to fuel dock employees, especially Flying J, because they got containers there. Who knows what's in them? And zip codes to fuel docks, to ever-changing digital codes. You know, those gas change prices could be a code change or where nobody could figure it out. You know what I mean? I think I might have. Let's hope. Let's hope. So anyways, with that, I'm going to go to flight numbers as well. Zip code to flight number, tower address. I think that could have been a message. That could be, you know, I'm not too friendly with the Holy Ghost right now. You know, I think the eyes to the toilet, all this invasion of privacy is common, something not good. So flight risk, be the flight number to the tower address. I don't know if there's coordinates to ordinance on that, you know, because every structure's under a coordinates number, and I'm not that smart with that, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to protect us from getting hit with a whole bunch of fire. And then there's kill lines on the oil. Wyoming, North Dakota, Montana, Idaho. You know, I don't give a crap about the Midwest, but the North, we're in it. It's the best. And if the oceans get cut, we won't get any more rain. Wyoming won't be so green. And that'd be a shame. It really would be. So the thing I'm working on right now is the fuel child at the schoolyards selling dope to kids that are proper. So you got two different, we're not all the same. I'm going to have to say it. There's fueled bodies and you're under a punishment. I think it's a death sentence. It could be a cancer thing, you know? Right. Extensive acid on fuel or accelerator or something like that. But all I'm concerned about is we got to get those children that aren't supposed to be with those kids away from that. And I appreciate you letting me speak.
Any questions for Craig? I don't think so. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, stay safe.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being back.
Yep. Thanks, Craig. Take care.
Too.
Anybody else? Okay. Council will now discuss the resolution for the warranty deed with the Natrona County School District. Because this is not on the consent agenda, it will be open for discussion by council. Please read the resolution by title only.
A resolution to execute a warranty deed with the Natrona County School District to transfer a portion of Highland Park, including existing tennis courts, from the city of Casper to the Natrona County School District.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve the resolution just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I do. This project is, of course, one that we've talked about for some time now and is coming to the point of the district wanting to break ground and get moving with respect to the creation of the courts that they've had an interest in the area that you see demonstrated on your screen in front of you. The basic question to the council this evening is pertaining to the notion that the land outlined in the dark line would be conveyed to the school district for the purpose of creating a larger tennis court complex with pieces and parts of the land that you see within this outline. The district also plans to create courts adjacent to the land that the city would be conveying on currently owned school district property as well, so that indeed the complex that's been discussed and described to the council previously would come to fruition. You'll notice that there are 2 northern courts along Beverly there that are also highlighted. It's anticipated that those courts would not be included within the complex construction, if you will, but rather retained by the district in partnership with the city for the city to consider resurfacing those courts as a condition of the district keeping those courts, even though they won't be included in the actual complex that they're envisioning. Certainly, I would say, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, that if indeed the city, for whatever reason, can't come to a conclusion either with the vendors who might provide the resurfacing services or with the pickleball community, in that we are hoping to reformat these courts for pickleball use primarily, then indeed I would propose that we take those courts back and, contingent upon, of course, the district being willing to allow them to come back and raise those facilities and not move forward with the project to resurface those courts and essentially convert them to turf. So with that in mind, Mr. Mayor, I'm hoping that as a part of this conveyance, we have that understanding in mind that the partnership would continue for those two courts potentially, albeit in a different format.
All right, thank you. Discussion. Okay, any amendments? Oh, did you have a comment?
Just out of curiosity, what are we kind of looking at in our negotiations with the school district as far as the dollars to resurface those courts?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, the city would be responsible for that resurfacing, and indeed, we believe that cost will be in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $200,000. I would propose that if we get outside of that range, the city should not do it, and as I discussed, take those courts back and raise the facilities so that indeed they won't be anybody's maintenance issue.
And along with this agreement, with them taking this over, if they do go ahead and take them over and we work out that agreement with them for the resurfacing, then we're totally done with them, and the school district will then pay for maintenance in perpetuity.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, that's correct.
So this would wind up being a one-time payment for the city.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Councilmember Inga Bretson.
If we converted those courts to pickleball, then the school district has no interest in those courts, correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, they wouldn't be including them in their tennis program, but would retain ownership if indeed that resurfacing takes place.
So would they be responsible for the maintenance of it?
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, that's correct.
Okay. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the third amendment to the current budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. We have two exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Jill Johnson to J. Carter Napier dated June 16, 2022. And exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune dated June 14, 2022.
Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, this is the amendment that essentially wraps up the final actions, if you will, of the fiscal year 22, the fiscal year that we're currently in. And as you know, we do not have many days left with respect to this fiscal year. The primary purpose of this amendment is to accommodate the purchase that council authorized of $8 million for the Casper Business Center, the design of which council directed a week ago. And beyond that, the changes are relatively small, and certainly if council has additional questions, in addition to the Casper Business Center purchase, of which we've already discussed, we would certainly be happy to entertain those.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of Budget Amendment number 3 to please approach the lectern. Those who wish to speak in favor. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the Budget Amendment 3 to please approach the lectern. Those who wish to speak in opposition. There being no one to speak for or against the Budget Amendment 3, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair to entertain a motion to, by resolution, amend the current budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022, Third Amendment to the original adopted budget.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. Discussion. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of making appropriations of funds for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. We have exhibit number 1, correspondence from Jill Johnson to J. Carter Napier dated June 2, 2022, and exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune dated June 14, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is council's opportunity to adopt the fiscal year 23 budget in the amount of $930,287 to operate the next fiscal year for the city of Casper. Within that anticipated expenditure, we are anticipating a capital agenda in the neighborhood of just over $41 million, the detail of which council received in a number of successive meetings leading to this point. The budget was delivered at the end of May, where we had an opportunity to go through a work session on the topic and some follow-up conversation since then. By tonight's passage, potentially council would certainly be within the direction that statutes provide, and indeed the operating authority would then be granted.
Great. Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of making appropriations of funds for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 to please approach the lectern. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to making appropriations of funds for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 to please approach the lectern. There being no one to speak for or against making appropriation of funds for fiscal year 2022 to 2023, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair to entertain a motion to, by resolution, making appropriations of funds to cover expenditures of the City of Casper, Wyoming for fiscal year of July 1, 2022 to June 30, 2023.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Egebretson, seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Discussion. Amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of changes to Eagle Valley Edition Number 2. Mr. City Attorney, do you have exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Liz Becker to J. Carter Napier dated June 3, 2022, and exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune dated June 3, 2023.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do. The crux of the request that you have in front of you tonight is twofold, one of which, of course, would be to reconfigure the southern portion, the southwestern portion, if you will, of the subject area on your exhibit, which would also consume the area known as the Eiley Addition, as indicated on your exhibit. The plat that is being approved would reconfigure the area as described in the way that you see here in this exhibit. You'll notice that we also are suggesting, pursuant to the petitioner's request, that the two southern properties, the bigger properties known as, I believe, lots 9 and 10, would be rezoned to a C2 general business application if this should pass this evening.
Great, thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the issues involving Eagle Valley Edition Number 2 to please approach the lectern.
Hello, great city council of Casper, Wyoming.
Good evening.
Hansold. I live at 128 East 27th Street. I'm the property owner and the filer of this application, and I'm here to speak in favor of it.
Any questions? No, I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others who wish to speak in favor? Okay, at this time I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issue involving Eagle Valley Edition Number 2 to please approach the lectern. Anybody in opposition? Okay. There being no others to speak for or against the issues involving Eagle Valley Edition Number 2, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance approving a vacation, replat, subdivision agreement, and zone change to create the Eagle Valley Edition Number 2.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Discussion. Councilmember Cathy.
Excuse me. I had a question for the city manager. Have we heard anything from YDOT and the paperwork about the speed limit there on Casper Mountain Road? Because it looks like we're fixing to put even more housing along that area.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, indeed, not only that, but there will be an additional access into Casper Mountain Road on the southern end of that proposed development as well. So the YDOT has been very cooperative with regard to our wishes. In fact, they even offered that if we so desired, we could even take over jurisdiction of that portion of Casper Mountain Road, to which we kindly declined. So they are ready to work with us, and as a matter of fact, we may even bring forward a recommendation for you to consider pertaining to the city's portion of the road, thereafter. So those recommendations are being prepared, and indeed, you may want to consider developments like this as a possibility, as a possible warrant, if you will, for changing the speed limit through there.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions for staff? Okay, any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
Councilmember Ingebrigtsen's and Vice Mayor Friel's abstentions noted and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of a special malt beverage permit for Casper Horseheads Baseball Club. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 4 exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Trummel to J. Carter Napier, dated June 8, 2022. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated June 14, 2022. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated June 8, 2022. And exhibit number 4, liquor license application, filed May 26, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As council is aware, statute changed relatively recently with regard to this type of provision being available for publicly owned venues. Lansing Field is a venue that we believe is eligible with respect to this type of a service. And as you noted, a special malt beverage permit type service. The application that's been proposed for your consideration this evening is to allow for the sale of malt beverages in partnership with the Horseheads for Lansing Field during the baseball season. And so the effective date would be June 22nd, if I remember correctly. And just as a matter of interest, this is actually the first of its kind to be awarded if in fact council should decide to do so this evening.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers are allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the special malt beverage permit to please approach the lectern. Anybody in favor? Okay. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the special malt beverage permit to please approach the lectern. Any opposition? There being no one to speak for or against the special malt beverage permit, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair to entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize a new special malt beverage permit number 1 for HA Baseball LLC, located at 330 Katy Lane.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Sutherland, seconded by Councilmember Ingebretson. Discussion. Yes, Councilmember Ingebretson.
So this is for somebody to sell beer. Who is going to be selling the beer? And I'm assuming that they're going to be tips trained. And then also patrons are not allowed to be bringing their own beer?
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, you're correct. And our partner in this would be the Horseheads organization.
Any other discussion or questions for staff? Okay, any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Pollock's abstention noted and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Jai, do you want to tell them? Oh, we have one more. Never mind. Thank you. Good call. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of new bar and grill license number 13 for La Cocina Mexican Restaurant. Mr. City Attorney, any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. 4 exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Trummel to J. Carter Napier, dated June 8, 2022. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated June 14, 2022. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated June 8, 2022. And exhibit number 4, liquor license application, filed May 24, 2022.
Thank you. City Manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council entertained a proposal of this sort in a work session recently from the folks who own the La Cocina Mexican Restaurant. As you all know, this is proposed to be located at the Compass development on the east side. And this would be the formal action necessary and needed if indeed council would like to award our final bar and grill license that we have available.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of bar and grill license number 13 for La Cocina to please approach the lectern. Those who wish to speak in favor. Good evening, Jim.
Hi, guys. Hi, City Council. This is my wife, Andrea.
Hi, Andrea.
My name is Andrea, and my address is, do you want the business address, like the one now or the one later?
I think either or is fine. Yep. Yeah, you can do, yep.
I'm going to do the new one. 4110 Centennial Hills Boulevard.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm Jim Childs and also at 4110 Centennial Hills Boulevard.
Awesome. Cool. Does anybody have any questions for Jim and Andrea? I just have a comment. I think it's great that you guys are moving out east and having an opportunity to have a restaurant up there and local. So we appreciate you guys continuing to invest in the community and offering that opportunity to have a good place to eat in town. So it's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kathy.
Are you going to be open for breakfast?
Loaded question.
I drive by that corner every morning. That's why I was wondering if I was going to be able to stop in and get breakfast burritos.
No.
No breakfast.
No breakfast.
Okay.
Not at this time.
Okay.
But we do want to say, I guess I'll speak for myself, that we are happy to bring a business like ours to the east side. The liquor license, I think, will create another atmosphere for the east side that I don't think they have. And it's a different type of food. And we are a restaurant with integrity, and we will be, I think we're going to, a lot of our staff now is tips trained, and we do want to become teachers to teach our staff. So they don't have to go anywhere to get certified. We will help them do that, right?
Yes, and I used to be a TIPS certified
Yeah.
teacher for the city and got tired of it at one point, but now I'm not. So I will get certified. It just makes everything a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yep. Councilmember Sutherland.
Are you keeping both locations open then?
No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming up. Yep, thank you. Any others who wish to speak in favor? Representative Sweeney. Or Citizen Sweeney is what you're Citizen Sweeney here, aren't you?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, Pat Sweeney, 951 North Kimball. And I just want to encourage council to vote in favor of this. I think it's a good move. Very proud of Jim and how he's turned his life around, and I think it's remarkable and significant, and I think it will be kind of a loss to the center part of town, but at the same time, a good business move, I am sure. So with that, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions for Pat or anything? No. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any others who wish to speak in favor? Good evening.
Mayor, City Council members, Jack Linhart, 2100 Miracle Drive, Casper, Wyoming. I've had the pleasure of knowing Jim and Andrea for over 25 years when they opened their first restaurant in Mills. They've been a great steward of their current liquor license, restaurant license. They've also paid a lot back to the city of Casper. In particular, one thing I remember for years is they had the Thanksgiving dinner that they provided for the whole community, and I think that speaks a lot to their character. This would provide them the opportunity to expand. They also have children involved in the business, which would give them the opportunity down the road to hopefully succeed their parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others who wish to speak in favor? I'm ready.
Good evening, Mayor Pacheco, Vice Mayor Friel, members of the City Council. My name is Martin Axland. I'm the Real Estate and Property Director for True Land and Realty. As owners and developers of the Compass, we're here today to support La Casina and their application for the bar and grill license. Founded in 1996, La Casina's owners, Jim and Andrea Childs, have worked tirelessly to provide our community with award-winning food, a family atmosphere, and an inspiring story of resilience through very uncertain times. We're honored that Andrea and Jim have chosen the Compass as the future home of La Casina. We first approached the city regarding the Compass back in 2017, and since then we've worked close with city staff and members of the council to make this site and this development a reality. As identified in our site plan, True Land and Realty has been searching for a restaurant that would complement our Compass development, as well as provide excellent service to the surrounding neighbors. That restaurant is La Casina. Construction on the new building is scheduled to begin in late July, and we anticipate completion and occupancy in March of next year. Since the announcement that La Casina would be moving to the Compass, I've had the opportunity to speak with city staff to answer questions about the site. One area of discussion related to available parking. Keeping in line with the approved site plan, we've worked hard to maximize available parking, and as a result, the Compass exceeds the city parking ratio by 10 spots, 10 parking spaces. Additionally, peak hours of operation for each business at the Compass differ, creating even more potential parking opportunities for our visitors to the site. True Land and Realty has created the Compass to be a vibrant, dynamic, and community-driven gathering place. Our tenants, including La Casina, are all Casper entrepreneurs working hard to provide a better community for all of us to enjoy. I'd like to thank you for your consideration and your support of La Casina's application for the bar and grill license. I am available for any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Axlin? Yep, Councilmember Ingebrigtsen.
Comment. Thank you so much for showing up. I had a lot of questions and you answered them all, so I appreciate it.
We're excited to be here.
Any other questions? Great. Thanks, Martin. Appreciate it. Any others who wish to speak in favor? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Pacheco and City Council members. I'm Greg Dixon. I'm speaking on behalf of La Casina, I'm sorry. I'm here in the capacity as President and CEO of Hilltop Bank. We are also a tenant of True Land and Realty. Honestly, they are also an affiliate, so I'll state that. We were the first tenant. We started talking about developing a branch there in 2017. It came to fruition in August of 2020, and it's really exceeded our expectations. It's a great neighborhood. We wanted to be really good neighbors, and La Casina will wrap this development up. Local businesses, no national tenants. I love it. And I love Mexican food too, so thank you.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Dixon? Great. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Any others? Hi, Charlie.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Charlie Shop, 1235 Donegal Street. I'm here in support for this liquor license to go to the Childs. I, like Mr. Lenhart, have known these people since they started up out there in Mills, and they're some of the hardest working, loving people in this community. And we're looking really forward to this relationship with them there at the Compass. And Mr. Kathy mentioned in regards to having a Eastside restaurant, Mexican restaurant, and we're excited about it. So there you go.
Thanks, Charlie. Any others? Okay, thank you. At this time, I would ask the individuals, any individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the bar and grill license number 13 for La Casina to please approach the lectern. Any in opposition? There being no others to speak for or against bar and grill license number 13 for La Casina, I now declare the public hearing closed. The chair to entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize new bar and grill license number 13 for Child's Corp. doing business as La Casina Mexican Restaurant located at 4110 Centennial Hills Boulevard.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Kathy. Seconded? No. Seconded by Councilmember Gamroth. Any discussion? Yep.
I just want to make one comment. Usually when we have people come in here to get a restaurant liquor license, or any liquor license, they'll come up and there'll be one person to answer any questions that we may have, but hardly any comments. So kudos to you, and absolutely, I mean, to have this many people come in and talk on behalf of the restaurant, it shows you that you've done something right, and I know you have over the years anyways, but it really goes to show, especially when you have the caliber of people that we have in the room tonight to come up and talk on your behalf. So I just wanted that to be noted.
Other discussion or comments? And again, I'll just reiterate again, I've known these guys a long time too, and they've just been great to the community. And I think the best part about it is that it was when we look at local businesses that give back to the community, that's what it's about. And I know that's kind of cliche, but it really is. And I think Mr. Dixon hit the nail on the head. The Compass is all local, and that's a really important aspect to note. And I think that that's a perfect place for a company like La Cocina to come in and continue to do that. So bravo all. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Pollock's abstention noted and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Thanks, Jay. Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance amending sections 10.36.010 and 10.36.020 of Chapter 10.36 Parking of the Casper Municipal Code.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Ingebretson. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. So I'll just open it up. So for the second reading, there's no for or against, we just kind of open it up. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor, Council, my name is Bruce Dangle. I live at 1617 South Poplar. A couple of little things I'd like to see you consider before this thing goes into final program. The wording in the ordinance now is that if I was to change oil on my pickup or add an air filter or something other along that lines, I could be fined for doing mechanical work. I'd like to see that addressed somehow. I don't know how that could happen. But second, I'd also like to see that any form of a parking permit be taken away from the ordinance. The monies that would come from that permit is pretty municipal compared to what could be anything else. The city has sales tax, use tax, local option 6 cents tax, severance tax, federal minerals tax, gas tax, special fuel tax, cigarette tax, lottery revenue, lodging tax, capital facilities tax, permits and licenses, building permits, franchise fees, contractor fees, land sales and rentals, capital credits, golf fees for merchandise, municipal court fines, interest on deposits, Wyoming community gas, local grants, federal grants, and probably a few others that I've missed. So anything that would come from this would probably be nothing to add anything to that. The other thing is, a couple other things here. The other thing is that I can park anywhere in the city that is considered city property. I can go to the event center, take in something overnight or whatever's going to happen, no permit. I can park in the street, subject to traffic laws, no permit. I can go to any one of the parks in the city and no permit. This, unfortunately, is considered city property and there's considering a permit. I don't understand the difference why one city property is this and one city property is that. So there needs to be something addressed to address that. I don't know how that would happen, but it needs to. And finally, should this ordinance go place as it's worded now, I wonder how the permits are going to be handled. Are they towards the person, the property, or are they towards every individual car that goes on there? I have 2 or 3 vehicles. They've all had turns playing on that parkway in front of my house. Does that mean I have to buy 3, 4 permits? Or do I buy just one because it is applied to the property owner and the permit? So a couple of considerations, but if you're going to pass it, this is going to be something that I'm concerned about. Maybe nobody else is, but I am. So
great.
That's all I have to say.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, Councilmember Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dangle, for coming to speak. It's not your first time. I appreciate your dedication to this topic and continuing to let us know what you feel about it. I guess there was a couple different points I was wanting to make or questions I was wanting to ask. You brought up the idea of revenue generation. I think we've already kind of established that this isn't a revenue generating venture. I think the city's actually going to probably end up losing money. In regards to the permitting, the permit fees will not cover the cost of administration on our side, I think is kind of my understanding. So revenue generation is not, I don't believe for any of us on council, a variable in this discussion. I think we're all well aware that it's not going to generate revenue for the city. So I guess I just wanted to say that. In regards to why the permit is needed on this piece of property as opposed to street side parking or something, I guess I would like some further clarification on that. Because I guess the only reason, the first reason that comes to mind, I guess, is if you take the responsibility to pave that, you have no recourse if somebody were to choose to park on that. And so this would allow you some form of legal recourse if anyone's using your parkway. But other than that, I guess I don't know what the differentiation is. So I'd love some clarification on that, either from my colleague or from the city attorney. That's all I have for right now. Thanks.
So I'm going to wait to the discussion part before we answer that. So John, if you can keep that in your back pocket until we get to that part, then we'll do that. Is that okay, Councilman? Okay, thank you. You bet. You don't have anything? Okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Removable permit.
Any other comments? Okay. Any discussion? I'll open that up now. Let's see. Yes, Councilmember Ingebretson.
So I just wanted to address Mr. Dangle. So I believe what the city is looking for is your permit so that you could take it and move it to each one of your vehicles. So you would have one permit, but then it would be like a placard that you can then move to whichever vehicle that you have currently sitting at the parkway. So you'd only have to permit to buy one.
Thank you. Any other discussions? Councilmember Pollack, I'll get you.
We're in discussion, right?
Yeah, we're in discussion phase, sorry.
I am interested in investigating a little further the issue of mechanical work. That's come up a couple of times with different folks talking about doing, basic maintenance to their vehicles in the parkway or driveway. I'd be interested to hear from the city manager what that currently looks like and any thoughts on how we might address that without opening a full can of worms as to people running a maintenance facility out of their front yard sort of situation.
Mr. City Manager, do you prepared to answer that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Pollack hit the nail on the head. The city is not interested in trying to sanction folks for changing their own oil and adjusting a belt and even changing a tire on their own vehicle. It's when folks endeavor to take someone else's vehicle for business purposes to perform mechanic services in their driveway as though it were a commercial business. That's where we have the problems and the distinction that we're trying to draw there. So,
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Follow up. Is that clear in the ordinance, or are we really just have there been instances where people have been cited for that, for the former type of behavior versus the latter?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, I am absolutely not aware of any time that an officer or a code enforcement person or anything have tried to ticket people for changing their own oil in their own property. And if that were the case at all, my request to the chief would be to not do that anymore. So no, I'm not.
Thanks. Good points. Councilmember Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple points I'll try to make. In regards to the last note you just made, City Manager, as far as folks being ticketed for things that we probably wouldn't otherwise want them to be ticketed for. Could you or the city attorney explain what sort of, if any, arbitration process there is in place for citizens that take issue with any tickets they may have received? What does that arbitration process look like? Thank you.
John?
It's municipal court. That's it. If you get the citation, that's where you go. And so that's how that's done. Obviously, you can try to make a point of that beforehand. You can call up and make a point with the chief of police. You can say, geez, this was wrong. You can call up the city attorney's office and say, gee, this is wrong. But the formal process is you get a citation, you need to defend it in city court. So you can't let it go just on the basis that you called up, you know, the attorney or someone else. You've got to do that, and if they agree to get it dismissed, make sure that that gets done.
Carter, did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councilman Gamroth, to put a sharper point on this matter, the issue that we typically see far more is when property owners have junk vehicles in their yard and they're claiming it to be a, hey, I'm just kind of working on this thing, and that's where we run into typical dialogue, particularly when neighbors are calling and saying, hey, that car's been there, it's been on blocks for months, and so on. And so from that standpoint, that's generally where we have issue with folks, maintaining cars. That's far more the issue than otherwise.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, City Manager, for the explanation. Follow-up, but a different topic. In the ordinance currently, I'd have to look back at exactly where it is, but many of the streets with parkways are also snow emergency streets, which require residents to move their vehicles off the street within 4 hours of a declared snow emergency, which equates to about 4 or more inches of snow. Elsewise, they risk being ticketed at $50 or towing. And so I guess I'm just, that to me is kind of a sticking point. If these are on snow emergency routes that would prevent them from parking on the street in the case of a snow emergency, if they're not permitted to park on the parkway, it leaves limited options for these folks to be able to park their vehicles. And so I don't know if that's worthy of more discussion, and I don't think we've actually had constituents bring that up, but as I was reading through the ordinance, that to me seemed to be like it would be a cause for, I don't know if we're currently ticketing people for not moving their vehicles off the streets during a declared snow emergency, or if we would beef up those efforts to enforce that after we pass this, but that is something that we haven't talked about much that seems to be an issue in my mind. Thank you.
Did you want further clarification on that? Or did you want to, were you just bring
I
that
guess
point
my
up?
question would be, are we currently, or will we as a result of this past ordinance, begin enforcing the ordinance that you must move your vehicle off the street within 4 hours of a declared snow emergency and leave it off the street until that emergency is lifted? What's our current status, and is that expected to change at all as a result of this ordinance? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, to answer the question, we do not anticipate the status of anything to change with regard to the passage of this ordinance in that realm.
Great, thank you. So I also wanted to make sure Councilmember Gamroth's other question was answered by John.
Very good. Thanks, Mayor, Councilman. The question here and why this is really kind of different than the other instances brought up by the citizen is that this would be an exclusive use by the property owner. And I think Council Member Engebretson had it exactly right, that basically the owner of the property gets to utilize a placard to move his or her, their vehicles in and out, but just one vehicle on a particular space. So basically, though, since it is an exclusive use, you as a citizen can't use it. You as a citizen use it. Nobody else except that particular household can use that. Well, we have a constitutional provision, Article 16, Section 6, that we can't give donations to individuals as a matter of state constitutional law. And so if we're going to say you can have exclusive use of this, it looks an awful lot like a donation. In fact, I would argue that it is a donation. And to do that and to make a special parking permit for an individual without any type of compensation would seem to me to be violative of the Constitution. So I think that's another reason that we felt that would be necessary. Usually you look at that at fair market value, and of course now you have all kinds of questions about that. But for now, basically we would consider this a matter of helpful public safety to get these off the street. So that's a benefit. But also then you do have the kind of nominal $25 fee per year.
Great. That help? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation. Thank you, City Attorney, for the clarification. Sounds like the citizen is still here, so I hope they heard that as well. My last question is, since we've brought it up in this meeting and my understanding of it was different, I wanted to clarify whether the permitting process that we're currently considering, and I guess this has more to do with the resolution than the ordinance we're talking about tonight, but we mentioned placards that could move from vehicle to vehicle. My understanding was that we had been discussing stickers that would be, I guess, fixed to a vehicle, so I just wanted clarification for sure on what that, whether it's going to be a sticker or a placard. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, my recommendation, Councilman, would be placards.
Any other discussion? Nope. Nope. I don't have anything. Oh, you do. I thought you were pointing to Councilmember Pollock. Did you think that too? Yeah.
I was saying me.
Vice Mayor.
Well, I just have a few things that I want to say about this. First of all, I think that when we look at the restriction or the restricted parking that are in the areas of the high schools, those were done for a reason. There was limited parking at the high schools at the time. Since then, a lot of properties have been bought up by the school district. They've been leveled. There's bigger parking lots. We've reconstructed the high schools, and there's plenty of parking now. And I really would venture to guess that we're not having as big of an issue with restricted parking there as we did before. But that was done for a reason. Today, people buy a house because of when you go to buy a house, you buy a house for numerous reasons. And I'm sure that a lot of people will go up to them. You have neighborhoods in town that have HOAs to them to where you can't park on the street. You have to park in a driveway or you have to park in a garage. And so when people purchase those homes, they sit back and say, okay, everything that I own, can I follow by these rules and keep them off of the roadway? I would imagine the same thing goes when people buy houses in neighborhoods that have parkways to them, that they probably look at it and say, do I have enough driveway space? Do I have enough space in my garage to park? Can I park on the street? I'm pretty sure it's not really crossing anybody's mind, hey, I've got a parkway and eventually someday I'm going to be able to pave this thing and park on it. I still find it rather ironic that the parkway is public property owned by the government that you, by law, have to maintain and keep up, but yet if you want to park there, we're going to pass a rule that says we'll allow you to park there on public property, but now you got to pay us to do that. So we don't maintain the public parkways as a city. We require people to do that and keep the upkeep. And I'm completely against saying now you got to pay me if you want an extra place to park. Flip side of that is you chose to live there, and if it is not allowed to park on it, then that's one of the things you just got to deal with. Just like an HOA in any other neighborhood, you buy into it, you got rules that you got to go by. So that's where I'm at. I'm against this. I think it's been a colossal waste of time, and I hate to put it that way, but it really has been. So that's kind of where I'm at on this.
We got Councilmember Johnson, then I'll get you. And you.
Well, to me, this is more like, it's like a sidewalk. You're required to maintain and fix your sidewalk in front of your house, but you can't park on it. You can't tell people they can't walk on it. You can't kick people off the sidewalk in front of your house. It's public property, but you're still required to maintain it. If it cracks, if it breaks, you have to go and fix the concrete. I mean, it's no different here. The parkway is public property, and what was like the city attorney said, constitutionally, we cannot give them that public land for free. You can't. It's unconstitutional. So to me, this is the easiest and cheapest way to get people exclusive use of public property. $25 a year. It's a drop in the bucket. And it's not, and as he said, it's not even gonna come close to covering the administration costs for the city to administer this program. So in actuality, the rest of the citizens of Casper are subsidizing your right to park there. And so I don't know why it's such a big deal. And why, and this is a years-long discussion. This isn't the first year this has come up. So to me, I think allowing people to park there for $25 a year is more than generous.
Councilmember Pollack.
Thank you. Since Vice Mayor Friel kind of brought up the what seems to be a disconnect that I've been seeing a lot online as well, this notion of you've got public property that the individual property owner is responsible for maintaining. I suspect it is common practice, that arrangement is common practice, but I'm wondering if anybody, Carter or John, if you can provide any insight. Is that typically, is it a typical structure for when you've got a lot, you've got a house on it, got the sidewalk and the parkway, you know, those types of areas that are public property that need to be maintained by the homeowner? Or is that just something that somebody in Casper concocted decades ago and we decided to set it up that way? Thanks.
Carter.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, I appreciate the question, and I would tell you in the communities that I've worked in at least, it's a pretty typical partnership that Ordinance supports, that the parkways be available for the public enjoyment even though the neighbor adjacent to it maintains it. Furthermore, particularly for those in Wyoming, those communities in Wyoming, there's a particular sensitivity for trees in the parkway. And generally speaking, it's also very, very common that when people are trying to chop down those trees or whatever, that too would be illegal. So a lot of these features are fairly common.
Just a quick follow-up to that as well. When you say that, you know, the parkways are typically kind of designated as public property for public enjoyment, can you tell the public why do we have parkways? What's the point of them, and to what extent does that, you know, serve the public at large?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, thank you for that question as well. Generally speaking, the parkway is meant to be, typically anyway, almost like a green space in the streetscape. Generally speaking, that's what they're there for, to add a little separation for the pedestrian corridor in concert with the vehicular corridor, can also be a safety measure as well. So when you have parkways, it's generally in the guise of creating some green space as well as some physical separation between the pedestrian corridor and the vehicular corridor.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Thank you. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think the points that Councilmember or Vice Mayor Friel raised make a lot of sense. I mean, it's hard because I know there's been a lot of work and discussion and effort and thoughtfulness that have been put into this, but it's hard for me to understand. I mean, first of all, $25 I don't perceive as a major issue, but I don't think we're talking about $25. I think we're talking about a principle, and there's not a monetary value to that. So I think that what I feel like I'm hearing and what I'm understanding is there's a distinction between what is public and what would be exclusively the right of the owner of the home. And so I'm curious about an option where there's a parkway, and unless you have a permit, anybody can park there. And you don't have the right to go out and tell somebody to get off of the parkway because you're not paying a permit for that space. And then if somebody did want to have exclusive access to their own parkway and therefore prohibit others from parking there, they would therefore pay the $25 permitting fee. It seems to me like that's the legal issue, is whether or not it's exclusive. And so if that solves the problem, if you want to say, this is my space, you can't park here, $25 a year. If you want to gamble and have the space available, and you're okay with anybody parking there, as long as you're following the regulations and upkeeping that space according to our other codes, I wonder if that's a way to meet in the middle in terms of meeting our legal requirements, in terms of what is exclusive and therefore not a donation versus what is indeed public property. So it's kind of a comment and kind of a question, I guess.
John, I'm going to throw that to you, because I think that's a legal question.
Great, thanks. Yeah, one other matter, I think certainly there is that it is the exclusive use, but also then you have to have the matter that we talked about, at least the last council meeting, I believe, when we were talking about making the designation, the requirements of the actual physical ability to park up there. And I know that we've been in contact with the city engineer about that, on what type of space we would need, and then actually the thickness of the space if you expect it to last and not to break up. And so those are other things. So if you have no obligation to do anything other than just plunk your car up on somebody's parkway, it's kind of an aesthetic disincentive for people to want to live on parkways, which the advantage was earlier, that was something that would beautify the area that they would live on. And you wouldn't just have people. And remember that we've had a real problem with hoarders here too. And you have people that come and hoard, and they list in their messy, nasty vehicles that are piled over with crap. And so, you know, those are not good things. And then also to make sure that they're of the proper width, so that they don't hang out into the street or they don't hang over into the sidewalk. Those are important things. So, I mean, there's all these little things that sounds great, but if you're going to actually have a workable city, you can't be taking all of these rights from people who are riding their bikes down the curb line, or pedestrians who have a wheelchair, or people that don't want to look out and see somebody's collection of gunk in the back of their truck. So those are things at least to consider. It's not necessarily that you can't let them do that, but certainly those are arguments against. Though the constitutional matter is, I do think if you're going to have any type of limitation on that, you probably ought to make sure that there's at least a nominal fee.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I guess, thank you for that. I guess I just wonder in terms of the solution, like is the solution really the $25 fee? Because that's going to apply to people who have been parking on a space for many years, versus just making sure that we have the right requirements in place in the code. And when people violate it, then they're in violation, and they can, you know, deal with the authorities at that point, versus applying a widespread fee. I don't know. To me, it does feel like we're kind of not directly addressing the issue on the head. I mean, I'm kind of in the middle on it, but yeah, that's what I feel.
Councilmember Ingebretson.
I'm going to add to what Carter had said about why we have parkways. It's also to my understanding that if cities were to need to widen streets, that in the older parts of town, you have the availability to potentially do that. So they can take out the parkways and make streets wider if we had the money to do so.
So Vice Mayor.
So I guess I have a question, maybe Carter can answer this, and it's going to be in the form of a scenario. So if I own a property downtown and I got two 50-year-old cottonwood trees in my parkway, can I cut those down?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, generally speaking, we would ask that the property owner come and visit with our arborists if there are safety concerns. But to go out universally and simply remove trees, the answer would be no.
Okay, so with that being said, if I have two healthy trees that I can't remove, then by passing this ordinance, we're picking and choosing who can use their parkway to park. I mean, is that a fair statement?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I would also say that there are going to be properties that have parkways that by using them as a parking space would violate site distance issues as well for intersections and so forth. And so I would suggest those properties would not be eligible for the use of that space as a parking space. Some are going to be very, very narrow parkways, and that would actually compromise the sidewalk by parking a car ostensibly in the parkway. Those properties would not be eligible for parking spaces either. So there are probably a number of scenarios that even though there technically is a parkway, would not be suitable for serving as a parking space.
Councilmember Kathy.
Couple of questions. First of all, to go along with the legal constitutional aspect of city property, we have charged, I believe it's the $25 for the special parking permits, which allow exclusive use of streets in front of people's houses. And normally it's been around school districts for parking so that they can actually park in front of their own house during school times. This is nothing more than that, as we are allowing you exclusive use. So you get into the push and shove of the, excuse me, the constitutional issue, which we are doing nothing more than following that same logic for the parking on the parkways. Secondly, and this turns into a question for the city attorney, is that actually those are easements versus which, whoops. Thank you. But basically, those are actually easements, aren't they? Rather than true property ownership, which an easement gives both parties rights to that property, and ultimately the utility easements, the right-of-way easements is what actually that parkway is, which allows the city to state whatever they want, just like a utility easement on my front yard is that if you need to come in and dig up the gas line, they get to tell me, go for it, and it's my decision on what I have to do, but it's my yard still.
In that regard, a lot of these areas, the old areas, which have the parkways, did have that kind of safety aspect to them, but it was kind of part of the actual plat that you would have that, and so you would have the street, the parkway, and then the sidewalks, and that was kind of all platted out. So with respect to that, those were dedicated, the parkway area was dedicated basically for the transportation unit. And so in that regard, you know, they would be, at least to the extent that they were used for the transportation purposes, the city property. Now, of course, you're going to have easements below that with utilities and the like. You may have access easements. What we're offering here, I would probably say with respect to these individuals, would be kind of like a license. You can utilize the property for this purpose, but it is subservient to the actual ownership, and then if there's an easement underground, of course, it's subservient to that too. Those would be the dominant estates if you have a recorded easement. So if they need to get in and move that line and you've got a piece of concrete poured there, you're kind of out of luck between those two people.
Thank you.
Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, we had these conversations, I think it was like 2015, 2016 maybe. Steve, you might remember. We had all these same conversations. And the end result was we just said no to parking on the parkways. And that was the end result. And then here we are again a few years later doing the same thing. We had these conversations when downtown businesses wanted to use the public sidewalk for outdoor seating. You had to have a permitting process. You can't gift a private business a public piece of land to make money off of. Just like you can't gift a public piece of property to a private homeowner for his own exclusive use without a permitting process. And so the other alternative, in my view, is to just keep it illegal. And then that solves all of it. You're not gonna make everybody happy in this process. We've been through it several times, this specific issue. And to me, I think this is the fairest option that there is. We even talked about gravel versus asphalt versus concrete versus tree removal and line of sight issues. Like, all of these conversations have already taken place. And so I feel like we're beating a dead horse here. And I think we have spent a ridiculous amount of time on this. So to me, I support everything as written. I think we should have charged the original $100 fee. I'm okay with waiving that and going to the $25 a year permitting process, but we have to stay within the confines of the law. And so if we're gonna do it, we have to have a permitting process.
Anybody else? Discussion? Okay, any amendments? Councilmember Kathy.
It doesn't like me. Yes, I would like to propose an amendment to Ordinance 9-22, Section 10.36.020. And that amendment would state, parkway parking is prohibited where 12-foot travel lanes and 8-foot parking lanes can be maintained, which in essence is saying you're pushing a 40-foot wide travel area. And as a follow-up to that, well, I'll wait and see if it gets a second, and then I can do my discussion.
Is there a second? Okay, I got a second. Discussion. Go ahead.
As a follow-up, basically, as Councilman Johnson said, is there are a large portion of the population that believe that we should not park on parkways. And by the same token, we have severe issues that have been brought up on 12th and 13th, and Councilman Nell has even mentioned Cedar, and I haven't driven around a lot of the other parts of the city, but I believe it's even South Walnut is a one-way street, and I feel very tight even driving my truck down between the parked cars. So this is to try to help alleviate and protect people's properties, i.e. their vehicles, from damage by people moving, plus conserve the parkways on the streets that really don't need parkways. We have a beautiful area, particularly in the tree area, with the beautiful parkways and the nice streets. They are plenty wide, and as a couple, I'm talking about Walcott, Durban, Beach, right on through that area, and on over into the north sides of town on some of the other north-south streets. But we do not need to be putting parkways on every street across the city. So to me, this amendment is compromising between allowing people in critical parking traffic situations to be able to remove their vehicles, but maintaining the beauty and the integrity of our true parkways. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, go ahead and cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Vice Mayor Friel voting nay and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
The amendment, right?
That's on the amendment.
What's that? That was the amendment. Yeah. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do our cast our vote for the, unless there's any further discussion on the amendment or on the ordinance itself. Okay. Let's go ahead and cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Vice Mayor Friel voting nay and all others voting aye, motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance amending Chapter 5.24 Hotels and Rooming Houses of the Casper Municipal Code.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Kathy, seconded by Councilmember Egebretson. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Okay, any discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance amending section 10.36.031 of the Casper Municipal Code, mobile vendor parking.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Egebretson, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Council will now listen to public comment, and public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers are allowed. Okay, any discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a vacation, replat, and subdivision agreement to create the Kensington Heights Edition No. 5 subdivision in the city of Casper, Wyoming.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers are allowed. Any discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Ingebretson and Vice Mayor Friel abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a vacation, replat, subdivision agreement, and zone change to create the Harmony Hills Edition No. 4 subdivision in the city of Casper, Wyoming.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cathy, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Council will now listen to public comment, and public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers are allowed. Okay, any discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Ingebretson and Vice Mayor Friel abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Council will now consider consent resolutions. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 10.A1, approving the vacation and replat of Tract A and lots 8 through 37 in the Wolf Creek 9 addition to create the Greystone at Wolf Creek subdivision. Item 10A2, authorizing a contract between the City of Casper and HDR Engineering Incorporated for the Western Gateway Corridor Enhancement Study Phase 1. Item 10A3, authorizing an amendment to the telecommunications right-of-way use agreement between Advanced Communications Technologies Incorporated, doing business as Range, and the City of Casper. 10A4, authorizing an agreement with Synergy Painting LLC for the solid waste buildings painting project. 10A5, authorizing an agreement with Crown Construction LLC for the Highland Park Storm Sewer Replacement 12th to Farnham. Item 10A6, authorizing a contract for professional services with Peak Engineering Technologies for construction, oversight, and project administration for construction of lined landfill cell 5 and leachate collection system enclosures at the Casper Regional Landfill. 10A7, authorizing change order number 1 to the agreement with SWI LLC for the solid waste entrance gate project. 10A8, authorizing change order number 2 with Modern Electric Company for a price increase and time extension as part of the CPU generator replacements project. 10A9, authorizing a temporary construction easement with Lanny Flaidland for the Paradise Valley to Robertson Road Trail project. 10A10, authorizing submission of an application to the Wyoming Department of Transportation for the fiscal year 2023 Transportation Alternatives Program funding for the Wyoming Boulevard Side Path Phase 1. 10A11, authorizing submission of an application to the Wyoming Department of Transportation for the fiscal year 2023 Transportation Alternatives Program funding for the Wyoming Boulevard Side Path Phase 2. 10A12, authorizing amendment number 3 to the existing professional services agreement with ThyssenKrupp Elevator Corporation to add Casper Business Center to elevator maintenance agreement. 10A13, authorizing an agreement with Construction LLC for the 2022 storm sewer upgrades First Street Bridge to BNSF Bridge. 10A14, authorizing the levying of 8 mills property tax by the Natrona County Assessor on behalf of the City of Casper. 10A15, authorizing an agreement with Melgard Construction Company Incorporated for the Casper Regional Landfill Cell 5 construction, earthwork, and construction of leachate collection and control system enclosures. 10A16, authorizing an agreement with Northwest Linings and Geotextile Products Incorporated for the Casper Regional Landfill Cell 5 construction geosynthetics project. 10A17, approving the City of Casper's Title VI program as required by the Department of Transportation for federal transportation assistance and authorized by the Civil Rights Act of 1964. 10A18, authorizing acceptance of a grant from the North Platte River Foundation.
Thank you. I just lost my place. Hold on. Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Mr. City Manager, do you have any comments on any of the items? No, sir. Any abstentions or nay votes? Yes, Councilmember Ingebretson.
I would be abstaining from 10.A.1.
Okay, anybody else? Yeah, Vice Mayor.
I'll be abstaining from the same.
Anybody else? Okay, please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Ingebretson's and Vice Mayor Friel's abstentions noted and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the consent minute action titles.
11A1, authorizing the discharge of $178.21 of uncollectible accounts receivable balances. 11A2, authorizing the purchase of one new mid-size police interceptor utility vehicle for use by the Casper Police Department. 11A3, authorizing the purchase of one new light-duty pickup truck, crew cab, short bed 4x4 for use by the Athletics Division of the Parks, Recreation, and Public Facilities Department. 11A4, authorizing the purchase of one new one-ton pickup truck, extended cab with service body and crane for use by the Sanitary Sewer Stormwater Division of the Public Services Department. 11A5, rejecting all bids received for the Paradise Valley to Robertson Road Trail.
Oh, geez, sorry. I was reading something else. Chair would entertain, I am off right now. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda items just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Friel, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. This time, we ask council members to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. We'll start with Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to report back to the council. We had an Economic Development Joint Powers Board meeting last week, and we are 2 readings out of 3 through approving the budget for that. No major changes that are proposed in the budget right now that I would report to you. Yeah, it's pretty standard to how it's been in years past. So, and I think that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Thank you. Just a few things. The ARA JPP meeting, budget meeting will be held this Friday, so we'll be meeting to pass the budget for that. It was Father's Day over the weekend, so happy Father's Day to all the fathers and my own included. And then lastly, I've just been following with a lot of interest the formula shortages, and I don't know, I mean, it's upsetting. And so for people who are looking for resources on that, hhs.gov/formula has links and points of contact for people in the community and elsewhere in case anybody who's watching this, who probably isn't if they're looking for formula, but if you know anybody who's looking for resources on that, you know, I can't imagine being in that situation. So just wanted to share that information.
Thank you. Councilmember Kathy.
No, you can't.
Okay. Attended Joint Powers Water Board meeting today, and we approved the operational budget and the water rates for FY23. The other thing is yesterday afternoon they had a bit of an opening ceremony for the Eyes of Freedom, which is a veterans display that was brought to Casper College. It will be here all week, and actually it was the Casper College Veterans Club that worked with the organization to bring it here. It can be a very moving experience to see that particular exhibit. And it is about the 22 lives lost in Lima Company in Iraq. And so if you have the available time, it's well worth going up to see. And it'll be here through 5 o'clock Friday.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson. Nothing for me. Councilmember Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one attended Casper Housing Authority Board meeting last Thursday. We discussed kind of regular items. However, one of the things we discussed was the fact that there's tens of millions of dollars of federal funding left on the table in our state for housing assistance because smaller communities cannot afford or do not have the expertise to manage their own housing authority. And as I understand it, state statute prevents agencies like our own Casper Housing Authority from working across other communities in the state unless they're providing contiguous services, meaning that Casper Housing Authority would have to start providing services for Natrona County and then adjacent cities and towns and then adjacent counties. So they can't be providing services up in Park County, for instance, until they have a contiguous path of services they're providing across the state. I think that's a shame because our housing authority does a great job and could be helping our other smaller communities throughout the state build much needed housing. This is good for them, but it would also reduce the burden on Casper, as many folks who are in need end up traveling here for those services, since we're one of the few communities in the state that has a robust housing assistance program and facilities. And so I guess that's something that I would like to explore maybe through our membership in WHAM. I'd love to see WHAM take something like that up because I think it'd be good for other communities if we could lend our expertise and our resources from our housing authority to help them build those facilities in their communities. It'd be good for them and it would reduce the burden for the city of Casper. So I'd love to continue exploring that. They had a Father's Day event at Washington Park over the weekend. It always goes really well. So thank you to their team, all of the participating agencies, Mercer Family Resource Center and others, as well as the volunteers that help dish out food and everything. It's always a very well attended event. I think they had a couple thousand people there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Ingebretson.
Steve Kathy took mine, so I have nothing.
Vice Mayor.
Only two things I have tonight, kind of in line with the Parkway. I know that Councilman Gamroth got a phone call today. I got, same person called me. There's people that are now realizing that things like sidewalks, which are owned by the city of Casper, in front of your home, if there's damage done to those, yes, you are responsible for those repairs. It does not come back on the city of Casper. So the question was asked where this can all be found, and short of putting it on an app or something like that. I guess the best place for people to go is you can go to the city website under government and go to municipal code on any questions you may have in reference to items just like that, or shoveling sidewalks, whose responsibility it is. But that's the best place to go to find all these things if you have questions about it. But I know the gentleman I talked to today truly did not believe, he thought that if the roots from a tree cracked the sidewalk, the city would come replace it or repair it, and that's just not the case. They're responsible for it. The other thing I want to bring up was CNFR. This year, I know as of Thursday, I had talked to Brad Murphy at the event center, and we were 5% above at that point in time over last year's numbers of attendance up there. So in last year, we absolutely blew it out of the water. And I know that Saturday night, I can't give out a final number, but I know Saturday night was an absolute record night, period, for the event center and the amount of money that was brought in. I know we had just a little over 300 seats that were left empty, but the rest of the place was a complete sellout. So still here till 2027, and I hope it remains here forever. So that's all I got.
Thank you. I really don't have a whole lot. I did a welcome address for the Wyoming Federation of Garden Clubs, which was enlightening. What I really did gain from it, though, they do a lot of work on conservation, talking a lot about water and trying to deal with those conservations with gardens and community gardens and the importance of those types of things. So it was something that I learned. It was great to talk to them. They had one of the main people from New Jersey was here to address them, and so it was great to have that conversation with them. Then I spoke and did a proclamation at the Juneteenth event that was at Matt Campfield Park. Reverend Pierce invited us down, and so we had a good opportunity. I know Juneteenth has kind of gained some traction, and people are kind of hearing it more in the lexicon within the community and within the country. And it really is an observance within the African American community, especially about the freedom of slaves. And so what's critical about that is shouldn't just be a black holiday. It should be an American holiday in the sense that we observe what transpired in 1865 and what was unfortunately not a great time in the American history. But I always say this, we are still not where we need to be. We still have a long ways to go when it comes to equality to all people. So, the next meeting of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 in the Council Meeting Room, and a regular Council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, July 5th, 2022 in the Council Chambers. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and time, this date and during this meeting was given. We have a matter to discuss regarding litigation. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into an executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session to reconvene this regular meeting solely for the purpose of adjournment of this regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cathy, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. There being a majority of members present and a motion to adjourn into an executive session and having been moved and seconded, and that motion requiring a 2/3 majority of the council present, please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
The greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion, and we are hereby adjourned into an executive session. Thank you all for being here. Be safe.